Thank you. So I think the entire day we spent talking about everything from formats, breaking news being, the point of discussion there, monetization, advertisers and what they look for from TV news channels, regional. And I think the only piece in the puzzle left to discuss about is social media and what the internet enables for news broadcasters and news platforms. So if I can start with you, Deepit, if you can tell us maybe, to go back to the inception of Inshorts. Back then, I guess it was still news was a TV consumption, TV first sort of consumption. Now, in certain pockets, you go to Twitter for to get the latest, and if you're tracking Elon Musk, then it just has to be Twitter and nowhere else. So, therefore, I want you to tell us what was the thought process at that point that got you to go with this format of news in brief, and that coming down just from the notification bar of sorts. Where did it all start for Inshorts?
Yeah, so the basic insight was actually around short form content. And that's what our company has been built on, right from our first product, which was Inshorts, as well as our second product, Public, which has a much larger audience as of today. So the core insight was that with smartphones becoming the primary mode of content consumption, the earlier formats of content that were there on the internet, especially around news, was mostly content that had been dumped online by traditional publishers without rethinking what was necessary for the internet ecosystem. And for desktop readers, it was still fine, but the challenge kind of became for like traditional content creators that for the mobile audience, the same content format didn't work, right? So that's the gap kind of we exploited, and we understood the opportunity of, like we were in our college and mostly students in our peer group, we were studying in an IIT, and most people in the peer group were people who are generally interested in general knowledge, generally interested in reading news, things like that. But none of them had kind of migrated their newspaper reading behavior online. Most of them had stopped reading newspapers, but they were not consuming anything online. So basically, there was a gap in the right form factor to kind of consume news online, and Inshorts kind of fit right there. But at that time, data consumption was obviously not that cheap for people. So gradually by 2017-18, when data consumption became cheap, we brought, say, another 500 million kind of people into the ambit of the internet space. And primarily, all of them were like mobile first internet users. For them, we kind of reimagined the same thing. Like whatever we did while reimagining Inshorts, we did the same thing for the 500 million audience and who are looking for information. And people who are looking for information are generally people who are kind of more premium amongst the large kind of audience base that India provides. So those more premium audiences are looking for content online, and what is the right platform for it? So Public kind of got born with that kind of a vision, that how do we give short form content in the vernacular languages, in the people's dialects, and kind of have a reach that has been unparalleled. So I can talk about more about it later.
Sure. Sumeer, if I can bring you in here, you have been, seeing how consumers evolve, how they consume content and not just news. And Deepit rightfully said, they identified this gap of short form, content consumption for the mobile interface in specific. Can you tell us a little bit about content consumption today and tie that with, news as you see it, news content as it is evolving on social media platforms?
Sure. So I think fundamentally, the way we consume news has changed, right? I don't think people were snacking on news earlier. we now actually snack on news. News used to be something that happened in the morning or in the afternoon or in the evening. Now news is 24/7. And I don't just mean it from a broadcaster perspective that the channel runs 24/7. It's even consumers who are consuming news 24/7. And what that has done, there are a lot of new things that have happened. For example, there is research that says that there is news avoidance that occurs now because there is just so much of it, right? And unfortunately, if you click on something, the algorithm will ensure that you will get 5 more similar things thrown at you. So after a point of time, a lot of people say, okay, I might as well switch off totally rather than, select what I'm viewing. So what they found is that news filtering doesn't happen, but news avoidance starts taking place. So that has changed a lot. The one thing I think we should all keep in mind, and I think Deepit mentioned it, is this, television news took the character of television programming. Whether good or bad, that's another debate, but they took the character of television programming in order to get the eyeballs. Somewhere, news online needs to learn from social media. So if Facebook is talking thumb-stopper content, what could that mean for news? It doesn't only mean breaking news. It could also mean different things. So what could that mean for news? We tend to believe that online is a lean-in medium, but there is a lot of scrolling that happens, right? So how would you get somebody to stop? And how would you get somebody to read? That has changed. In fact, this is a great panel because what we have are 2 different formats of storytelling, right? Which both are in the same business, but are telling you the same thing very differently. There is a new consumer, if you've noticed, who wants in-depth stories. So there are also places like the Ken, which have come up, which give you long format. It is almost like there is a customer who's saying, okay, I want to go beyond the headline. I was talking to somebody recently and he said, nobody talks about news after 4 minutes because nobody knows enough. Everybody just knows the headline, right? So can you talk about a topic after 4 minutes? Is it true, a true news hound would know that. So things are changing. I think consumers are evolving. I think technologies are evolving. But we still don't know where it'll all end, but let's see.
Vinay, can I come to you? You must be seeing, the data flowing in from your own platform, your maybe YouTube channel, your social media presence, be it, Facebook, Instagram, wherever your content might be. What is it that viewers, consumers are going for from a news content point of view on these various platforms? How do they get to your websites? Can you tell us?
So, see, of course, there's a lot of kind of democratization when it comes to even consumer choice. They don't just come through, some of the big social media platforms like, say, Facebook or Twitter. Obviously, is a more English-centric. So, Deepit would say that a public app is far bigger than Twitter in India in that sense in terms of overall audience reach. So, depending on which language we are talking about, audiences are, coming from various social media platforms. So in that sense, we are not just talking about 2 or 3 platforms, we are talking about dozens of platforms. That's level 1. Second is, see, while audiences are on multiple platforms, they are essentially looking for a story, right? In that sense, the story itself is defining the community. The reason I say that is that when social media started, the idea was that, your immediate social affinity, be it your family, your workplace, your society, your neighborhood, right? News is a local phenomena. So that would decide your idea of community. The traditional lens of physical transcending to virtual. Here what's also happening is that because I like certain kind of a story in certain kind of a format, so that is becoming a online or a virtual community. So people who like a genre of story, people who like B format of storytelling, right? Of course, there are some trends which are broader, and I think since morning you guys have been discussing that, which is short video, being the buzzword, and of course, it solves a mobile problem, it solves the attention span problem. It also partly at least addresses the internet bandwidth issue, which is there uh, still for the last 30% of our citizens or audiences. So all in all, the story has become far more plural. Now, when it comes to me as a publisher, I think I will have to partly go back to my fundamentals, which is, the story that I'm telling and the value that I bring to the table. Because with user-generated content, no matter whether you have 100 journalists or 1,000 journalists, you can't ever compete with 20 million or 30 million, right? Now, when does the thin line in today's era between a user-generated content and a journalistic storytelling, when do we cross that thin line, and what does it take to cross that thin line? So obviously trust, equity, and all these things which, when we talk at a broader level may sound too philosophical, but so important stories, that trust and that equity really matters. So I think as publishers, we will have to keep our fundamentals intact while obviously dancing to the tunes of technology.
So, Deepit, is that dancing to the tunes of technology, is that where, the public app comes in, you see how consumers have evolved since Inshorts, and can you tell us how you have, changed your approach, how different is this public offering that you have based on how consumers are interacting with news content on social media platforms?
Yeah, so I think one thing is that, I think where our conversation started, it was about how consumers are consuming content on social media and how content creators are supposed to leverage that. There's another phenomenon that's happening that I'd like to talk about, which is that since audiences are spending a large amount of time on social media, their habit of content consumption is being shaped by social media. So even if they are going and visiting another application or another publisher's website or application or a platform like Public, their expectation from that platform is like it would be of a social media platform. So basically short form content kind of fits that when they are scrolling, as he was saying earlier, that thumb-stopping content. So that thumb-stopping behavior and the content, the audience is making the content compete with other content on that platform to make that thumb stop. So that exists even on other platforms. So the only way to stand out as an independent application from the large big tech platforms is to kind of think of what is the value addition that your platform is bringing to your audience, right? So for example, Inshorts, the value addition was that you will not get cluttered by opinions. There'll be only factual stories within 60 words, curated for your personal interests. Simple. Like every day you'll come 4 times, 5 times a day and you'll consume this. It's a very, very simple proposition, but it stands out from any other platform because every other platform would talk about journalistic kind of editorials, opinions, etc. While a large amount of audience or number of audience actually wants a break from that. They just want कि मुझे बस facts बताओ and I want to know what's happening, just the facts, I'll create my own opinion. Similarly on Public, the value addition that we kind of thought of was that the large population of India, they don't care about what the RBI is doing in terms of its repo rate. They care about their neighborhood market, is the price of onions rising in say a tier 2 town in India, or has there been a big crime in their neighborhood, or so the definition of news and credible news is different for that kind of an audience, and that is exactly what this platform solves, and with credibility. So on the platform we have about 6,000, 7,000 journalists among our 1 lakh creators who are creating content, and they have a credibility associated in their account. So they have a different kind of a tick mark, which is a green tick, for journalists who are kind of accredited or associated with their local press clubs, and they have their own accounts. So this platform has grown to more than 70 million kind of users in India, and we are active in 600 districts of the country. So the thing is, so the larger point is that there is a social mediaification of content consumption anywhere, in any kind of platform, you know, and everybody needs to think like that, whether we are an Inshorts or a public or someone else.
Vinay, if I can ask you, so he says, you know, there's social mediaification of content in some sense, but how are these social media platforms acting as enablers for news platforms today? I mean, when we say leveraging the awesome power of, you know, social media, so from a distribution standpoint, how has the ecosystem evolved?
No, so, see, there are 2-3 questions within your question. One is when we say social mediaification, there are multiple layers to it, right? Social mediaification is happening at format level, wherein short video and thumb stopping and card format, so to speak. Because on mobile that really comes easy. And today in your fast-paced life, when you're moving and all that, you know, that content is very easy to consume. So in that sense, I fully agree with Deepit that, you know, this format innovation by social media companies has really led the way, and I think publishers all over the world are working with it. The second bit would be, you know, this broader trend that, you know, in languages, there's so much expansion because less than 10% of India, you know, reads or consumes English. So that sort of, you know, everyone reaching out the broad set of audiences, other than, I think he gave an example of Ken or something, someone who wants to really remain niche. Other than that, if you are trying to talk to India, today you can't separate that from talking to Bharat. So at that level, social media and internet both have, you know, together brought Bharat and India closer. Third is, you know, this entire idea that Deepit was talking about, that, you know, these journalists, he said they already give it some green tick, you said, right? Yeah, so clearly they were ahead of Elon Musk on that one. And so you see, they are using this green tick to tell you that, you know, this is coming from someone who is a journalist, right? I was coming exactly from that point that a user might tell a story which becomes an act of citizen journalism, which is great. And we need to do more of that, and we need to, publisher also need to figure out innovative ways of engaging with that. But at the same time, that only reminds us again that no matter how big a platform you create, how smooth a technology you have, and what awesome, you know, experience you create, you will always need that trust factor. So whether you use a tick mark, you know, even if you are Elon Musk, supposedly smartest person on the planet, you can be a great product tech leader, but the moment you try to behave as editor-in-chief of America, you have to step back, you know. So that's where I think at product level, at experience level, there are a lot of learnings. As much as there are, I think, learnings because publishing houses which were earlier either only in, say, 1 or 2 languages, be it vernacular or Hindi or English, today everyone is doing everything, right? So I think that's the broader trend. But at the same time, I think I'll keep coming back to this thing that when you need trust, when you need you know, certain rigor, when you need that hallmark that, okay, this story would have gone through certain amount of fact check, that it's reliable, you need that journalism.
And what about distribution on social media platforms? How has that evolved as well?
No, so social media obviously is playing a massive role in, you know, bringing in new audiences to news content. A lot of that doesn't monetize very well. But I wouldn't blame either side because I think in the panel before this, there was this argument that, you know, it also depends on how big our economy is, and all that debate will also come in. But definitely, I think today for any publisher, anywhere between 20% to 40%, depending on which publisher you're talking about, what kind of language set you're talking about. Audiences come from various sets of, as I was telling you, dozens of social media platforms. It's no more just about Meta. It's no more just about a platform. So Deepit might be giving 2% or 5% to a publisher. And there's Delhi Hunt, there is so there are aggregators and there's social media platforms in smaller languages, etc.
Okay. So you touched upon sorry, you wanted to say
I
something.
just wanted to come in on the topic of trust because I think that is quite a, it's quite a rich topic and lots of things have happened around it. So when COVID broke and it was a black swan event, a lot of people, and this was tracked data, which tracked that consumers actually went back to legacy publishers because they started believing that misinformation on COVID is so high and everybody is saying anything that I need to go back to people that I have trusted. So whether it was in India or abroad, we found that people ended up trusting publications like the Times of India more because of their legacy. On the other hand, on social media, everything that I'm reading, especially on social media, is coming verified by somebody just like me. Right? So my mother-in-law is now my managing editor also. So there is that trust as well, right? Somebody like me, my friend, is posting this or is sharing this. That gets connected to the validity of the news story itself. So it's quite a interesting age that we are going through in terms of trust and whose word will we believe, especially because we are also polarized more than ever before. So.
And is it that the greater the trust you're able to build, you will then be able to monetize that from subscribers? Because you mentioned Ken, right? And there's Morning Context, there's ET Prime, Money Control Prime, all of that. So if we can speak a little about monetization, and maybe if you would like to, go for it first.
Sure, I think there's a life cycle to this. There is an evolution to this. There is a lot of news, but there is a lot of news pollution also right now. Also because how do I put it? The production element has been taken away, right? Anybody with a camera can do something and post something. So on one level, everything looks the same. The barriers of running a newsroom versus having something out there has come down. So that has changed. I think over a period of time, people will realize the value of news. And then there'll be some people who will say, no, I'm good with what I get free. And there'll be some people who will say, no, I need to know more. And I'm willing to pay for it more because I probably take decisions basis the news that I consume. And therefore I want that to be in-depth, therefore I want it to be, more verified, etc. So I think it's an evolution. And you will find people going for both kinds of news.
Vinay, where are we in this evolution journey of consumers of news being willing to pay for news online?
We are at a very, very nascent stage, and I think we are at a stage which can partly be described as pre-evolution, if I may use that term, because the entire universe would be hardly 500,000 people who are actively paying for news at this point of time. And interestingly, there is a lot of overlap among these people. So you can partly say that, these are the discerning ones, or these are people who really care about what they are reading. They put a lot of premium on, what their intake is vis-a-vis the intellectual argument or facts of the matter, etc. Right? Because when you say that, fact itself can be debated in the sense that, the age-old saying that, data can sometimes lie. And that's something I think in the polarized world, political parties or different people on different spectrum of society tend to use, right? So you may say that, just because it's one bullet point, it's factual, but that might just be an outlier in the entire story. So having said that, I think as a publisher, I really, really hope that this evolution will help much faster. And I also hope that this evolution will be aided partly by technology because in today's day and age, you can't see at any point technology as a contrarian or adversary effect, because the same technology which can create these millions and millions of audiences which earlier would take decades to build, today, in a matter of couple of quarters, you can reach those audiences. So maybe micropayments, maybe some sort of a bundled models, etc. Because I don't think we can necessarily, in this case, follow the NYT example in India or something like that, because audiences are very different, their expectations are very different, behavior is different, and economy size and all that is different. So when we say middle class in India, for that guy also, $1,000 decision really becomes a dinner table conversation. So I think it's an evolution cycle, and I think we will have to find our own solutions which are, very deeply rooted in our economic and cultural milieu.
Okay. And Deepit, if I can bring you in, we have 2 minutes. 3 years from now, if you had to reimagine Inshorts and public, so right now we are at the public stage, so 2025, if you had to reimagine what news consumption would look like and what your offering for the consumers of 2025 would look like, what is that direction that you might go after?
I think the biggest mistake any company can make is to imagine the future. And the best thing a company can do is to learn from what's happening right now around them. So I wouldn't like to comment on that. Instead, I'd like to say that I think linked to that point and also linked to your monetization point earlier, that companies should really think, because it's India is not a large market like US, as Vinay was also earlier kind of stating. India needs, and hence for content creating companies, enabling platforms like us, as well as new age social media platforms, like we have different kinds of platforms under our single company. What is really key is like figuring out innovative business models, right? To kind of make business and sustain whatever you are doing, like whatever the consumer is finding value in. And there is no one size fits all. Like, for example, probably public will figure out its own unique innovation that that kind of drives its revenue, versus what Inshorts did, versus what Times will do, and versus what a Ken will do, for example, right? So everybody will have their own model. Someone will focus on small audience, but very loyal, high-paying kind of customers. Someone will go more broader. But having said all of that, one thing that has worked for us really in terms of monetization is being very innovative in terms of, so we think of content also, advertisement as well, also as a form of content. Like advertiser is, and coming from your kind of agency, you would also have that kind of a thought process, that how do you take the advertiser's point of view or the advertiser's messaging to the audience, and we are a very strong enabler in that. Like, in fact, we have one of the best in class kind of brand studio solutions within the company, and that's an investment we made without even knowing that this is called brand studio solutions, that a consultant told us later, oh, you are doing what New York Times did back so many years ago. So, being very innovative on that. So that is really important.
Okay. Thank you. And I think that kind of sums up where we are at, and point well taken about not imagining the future, but definitely looking forward to whatever the future of news holds for all of us. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.